just when it's time to get to work, it never wants to work. Again, my name is Hicks. I'm a wildfire prevention specialist with the British Columbia Wildfire Service. As well, I'm the fire behavior lead for the province, working with our predictive services unit. So we'll start out with just to start out a little bit about bio. I worked for government for over 36 years now. I was born and raised in Nova Scotia, so I'm a Canadian, East Coast Canadian by trade, I guess. In 2005, I left to go from coast to coast to come to the Pacific Coast to work for the British Columbia government. I've been involved in wildfire operations and research for over 30 years. I'm a registered port professional in British Columbia. I attended the Wildland Fire Behavior Specialist course. It's the Canadian version of the S590 in 1997. I'm actually currently sitting in Alberta getting ready to teach the 2020 version of that course starting tomorrow. So we're trying to train more people in fire behavior in Canada. As well, I've been the chair of the course for the past 10 years. I've been very fortunate to be able to work in all the Canadian provinces, several states in the U.S. as well. In 2009, I did the long 39-day deployment to Australia just after the Black Saturday event. So I'll say that I've seen quite a bit of fire, and I think fire is something that you kind of gets in your blood and you're stuck with. But I would say probably the last 10 to 15 years of my career have been pretty amazing in some of the things that I've seen from a good point of view and a bad point of view both. So it's been pretty interesting. I'm an active member of the incident management teams for over 20 years now, and I did serve as a stint in the Northeast Compact INT for a couple of years as well. Seems like I've narrowed my scope down with fire operations now to doing the fire behavior analyst role, and again, it's something that I guess it's my passion, and my passion for the last 10 years has been mentoring and training new fire behavior analysts. So just starting out, I'll do a few facts about British Columbia, so you'll see where I'm kind of working nowadays. I'll speak very poignantly to the mountain pine beetle infestation. I'd like to thank Erin. Just about everything she said, I can just say ditto to in terms of beetle attacks and climate change. And the only thing I would add, BC, the climate change seems to be a little more exacerbated, and it's just happening that much quicker for us. Our 2017 and 2018 fire seasons were pretty amazing points. Both set records in terms of area burnt, single fire size, and all kinds of fun things. I'll speak a little bit to some of the observed fire behavior that we're seeing in some of these beetle infested areas. We now have a new kid on the block, and I'll speak to that. The future. The future is the big unknown, and we're really starting to try to think of what we're going to do in the future as well. And conclusions first. So just welcome to British Columbia. Again, we're on the Pacific Coast. We've got a land mass of 95 million hectares, or 234 million acres. About 60 million of that is forested, or about 148 million acres. And the thing that's really different in British Columbia that you'll see from the east coast of North America is just about the whole province is owned by the government, so it's publicly owned land, and pretty interesting. Just to help you compare the size of British Columbia, Google is right. The 7 New England states are 18.7 million hectares, so it's a big chunk of ground, very sparsely populated, and heavily forested for sure. Just speaking maybe to that point, let's go back to this slide. I live and work in an area called Prince George. The great thing is my boss lives and works down here. I can truly recommend that distance between you and your boss. It's a great working relationship. In terms of forestry, I think maybe just to put what the importance of forestry is to British Columbia In Canada, BC produces over 50% of the forest products that Canada produces. The big thing that you'll find about the pine beetle, and I'll show you a couple of maps later, but the pine beetle basically really concentrated in this area. Hopefully you can see my cursor, kind of that central area of British Columbia. That's what we call the timber basket, and of that 52 to 54% of the forest resources that Canada produces, probably 90%, 80 to 90% of that would come out of that timber basket. So the pine beetle basically went right into the middle of that timber basket and had a big lunch. So it's pretty extraordinary from that perspective when it comes to forest management. So the pine beetle started in the early 2000s. It's a native species in British Columbia. It has ebbs and flows. So when it started to emerge in the early 2000s, infestations are usually 1 million to 2 million hectares, so 2.5 to 5 million acres. Everybody was kind of seeing that this infestation may be different. We came up with plans in terms of prescribed burning. Forest industries said they would mitigate, by taking as many beetles out as possible, beetle attack forest out as possible. The thing about it is, in the early 2000s, we were definitely starting to see that the climate was changing. And for us in the winter, that's where our big impact of the climate change is really felt in terms of, lower or higher temperatures in the winter. And for the pine beetle, it likes to really kill it. It needs to be at early fall, early fall, so that's September, October, and it needs to be hit by pretty cool temperatures. And this fall was a great example of we really didn't have freezing temperatures until almost in November in central British Columbia. So it was just it was a perfect situation for the beetle to emerge and start to build its numbers. The infestation peaked in 2007, and you'll see that kind of bar graph off to the side. It's impacted over 18.3 million hectares. So again, that's almost the equivalent of the land mass of New England. So it's impacted a large area of land. I jokingly tell people that we're the only place probably in the world that has figured out how to minimize the impact of the beetle and kind of eradicate the beetle, and we did it by starvation. It basically ate just about every living pine tree in British Columbia. So it just found it unable to sustain itself because there was nothing really left to eat. Our 2019 beetle surveys showed that we were under 100,000 hectares, so we were under 250,000 acres infected by beetles. So best way to think about it is a cereal bowl, and it's just a fine line on the rim is what it's eating right now. So pretty interesting from that perspective. Just want to show you this map, and it may not show up that well on the PowerPoint, but it just kind of tracks that beetle infestation from 1999 through, and you'll see the red. As the red disappears, it kind of goes to white or gray, but you'll see how it impacted and moved. Really interesting, you're starting to see in the northern part of the province, the beetle has never been found above the 56th parallel. And when you think about the map, this the top is actually going here. So this would be the 60th parallel. A northern community, Fort Nelson. The beetle had never really gone up that far. It's gone up past Fort Nelson, over into Alberta, our neighboring province to the east. It's crossed and it's almost hit the 60th parallel. So the beetle has been a very persistent critter, and it's ate a lot of country up. That's kind of what it looked like in 2012. Actually, now it's if you start to look at this extent, it's over in this area. This little fragment of Saskatchewan here, it's actually the Saskatchewan. It's gone up almost to the 60th parallel in this area as well. So it's a pretty amazing tract of land that it's attacked. And again, when I say attack, you know, don't cancel your plans to come to British Columbia because we still have a lot of green trees. When we talk about stands been impacted heavily by it, it's about 60% of the actual living green pine trees have been affected. Again, we have a lot of mixed conifer stands that we still have quite a few green trees in. In terms of the 2017-2018 wildfire seasons, you know, we burned greater than 3 million hectares in 2017. The really poignant point about 2017, we were concentrated kind of in the very central part of British Columbia. That's where we had just about 95% of our large wildfires occurred. So we were concentrated in one area. We only had 1,265 fires, which is a little bit below average in terms of numbers of wildfires for us. We had a provincial state of emergency for 70 days. That's the longest state of emergency that's ever been held in the province. And we had the largest fire, the Plateau Fire, just south of Prince George, and it burned just over 1.3 million acres. So a huge part of the Mount Pine Beetle area that had been harvested, still standing gray dead, was impacted by that fire. 2018, the difference between the 2017 fires and the 2018 fires is 2018 we covered the whole province. We were from the 49th parallel, the border with the United States, up to the 60th parallel, which borders the Canadian territories. So our resources and our ability to work was very much stretched to the point of breaking for sure. The number of wildfires, 2,092. Again, that's very close to average. It's a little above average actually, so it's a lot of fires that we had. And we burned over 3.3 million acres of land, so pretty amazing stuff. The provincial state of emergency, I tell people we did a better job, so we only had to have that in place for 23 days. Again, in 2018, we burned huge tracts of Mount Pine Beetle affected areas. Just kind of showing you where the fires are. It doesn't look like a lot in terms of the yellow or yellowish color will be the 2017 wildfires. You'll see that they're all concentrated in what we call our Central Plateau, Caribou Fire Center. The 2018 wildfires, we had a good cluster here, but we had several large fires in the north that impacted remote communities, several fires in the south part of the province. So to put this in perspective, if you're in a car and you sit here and you want to drive from this fire to this fire, it would take you in the ballpark of 32 hours. So it's it's a long distance. The good thing about it, in 2018, the Canadian military came in and we were actually flying crews and trucks around in C-130. So we kind of figured out a new way to move fire crews around very quickly. So what happened in 2017, 2018? I think there was no one factor that really did it. The planets definitely aligned. We had the weather, we had the drought conditions. I think topography, for the most part, was a very minimal factor in most of the fires. Fuel, very big, and everything just seemed to line up. In 2017, we had 1 week at the 1st of July that we set record temperatures every day, just about every area of the province. And that following up on a very low snowpack through the winter into a very dry spring, into record high temperatures, and just one ridge breakdown and several 100,000 lightning strikes, and we were definitely busy the rest of the year. I truly think that the weather is changing. We have some naysayers. I think every place has naysayers saying that the climate's not changing. It's changing, and it's changing a lot quicker than we would like to see it for sure. Just showing you what some of the areas of Mount Pine Beetle look like. This would have been a picture I took in 2006. Large tracts of red dead trees. You can see big lines of green. Again, you'll see huge patches of clear cuts. Industry very active trying to mitigate the hazard and risk from this. So they were actually harvesting. They harvest in British Columbia. We harvest about 500,000 acres of forest a year. So
it's a big machine and it can chew up a lot of ground pretty quick. So tracts of land. This picture was from 2014. Green plantations. That's another thing we see that usually pine beetle affects mature trees, but we were finding that there was so many beetles and they were looking for things to eat that they were actually attacking 20 to 30-year-old plantations. Not successful in overwintering in it because of the thinner bark, but they were definitely able to kill large tracts of younger plantations as well, so that's pretty hard set. So, here's areas where you have 100% bud-full pine trees, and they're mostly gray there now. Picture in my neighborhood, this is what we'll see. We'll see green trees, we'll see red trees, we'll see gray trees. And this is a picture from 2018. This is what the forest is starting to look like now. Still green trees standing, gray trees standing, but we're starting to see that surface beetle loading really increase exponentially as the beetles start to fall down. This is what we're seeing in terms of, the moles of tree laying on the ground, 7.3%, and this is just a timber master kind of moisture meter. So again, when we start to look at this material would be 8 to 12 inches in diameter, and at 7.3% moisture content, we start thinking about kiln-dried lumber anywhere from 12 to 14%. We have an understory or surface fuel loading that's kiln-dried lumber, very susceptible to burning and really increasing the fire intensity. When we look at our fire records, again, we've had, for numbers of fires, we're starting to see a little decrease in the number of fires, but we're exponentially starting to really see an increase in actual area burn. And again, this only goes to 2018. I'm very happy to report that 2019, the dots are going to be way at the bottom. We had a very dry spring in 2019, but June rains came and didn't seem to stop. We burned under 20,000 hectares or 50,000 acres, and we had just over 1,000 wildfires. So it was a nice break for everyone. Just a picture I take from a helicopter when I showed you that surface fuel loading. This is the kind of fire intensity that we're seeing, and if in terms of putting water on this, it's a no-go. It's it's even our fire retardant, which should be kind of lay a lot down. It's even burning through that. Nothing can stop it. Everything is available for the flaming front, and we're starting to see a lot of consumption and a lot of heat output from these fires. So very much indirect attack, which doesn't make us friendly with industry because we're having to drop back a fair distance from the flaming front, build yards to then burn off. So they see that we're allowing timber to burn, and then when we do our fire ignition operations, we're burning up more timber. So in terms of that the beetle has eradicated a lot of the forest and that timber is no longer commercially viable, they see that we're killing more trees that they could be cutting down. So we're not friends with, or we're not in a good situation with a lot of forest industry. Again, the gray standing trees, very much spotting material. When they are activated by the ladder fuels, the green ladder fuels, and some of the green trees, we're starting to see an increase in spotting exponentially across the landscape. As well, the dead material that's on the ground is a very receptive that fuel dead for spotting as well. So I've seen in helicopters flying along that you'll see, instead of seeing a flake of bark being your spotting material, it's almost a plate of bark being your spotting material now. So just the ability to sustain fire and go that much further and spot that much further. So it's just causing us that much more grief. We seem to have, when we got into the pine beetle harvest, we were harvesting so much, and at that time, the lumber market was very down. So they were very much migrating the forest, leaving a lot of material behind. In BC, post-harvest / abatement guidelines. They seem to go to the wayside. Government didn't want to be seen as being an impediment to industry, so they seem to allow them to leave more stuff on the ground. So, in 2017, 2018, we really seen that. This would be probably a 5 to 6 year old plantation, and you'll see the fire spreading across that very fluidly. Again, the material is there's so much material on the ground that it's next to impossible to stop. We're falling back to the edge of plantations and burning off plantations, which again doesn't make us big happy people with industry, the forest industry. We're seeing very high intensity fires to the terms of we really can't do anything with them, and very high rates of spread. If you look at the inset picture down here in the lower left-hand corner, this was what a lot of the forest looks like now. We have pine, spruce, fir understories, anywhere from 3 to 6 meters, so 10 to 20 to 25 feet in height. The gray trees are, anywhere from 60 to 75 feet tall. So you would have great material that's wants to burn, very good spotting material, and you have a thick conifer understory that wants to form, and the rate of spread to anything there. So the fire behaviors in terms of rate of spread is being driven by the green trees. The gray trees are driving the fire intensity. Just a quick shout out to what our drought conditions were, and this is just a BUI, so our build-up index, and this is what we use to kind of indicate the Canadian system's cumulative drought. So when you look at the average for this Risky Creek station, in that July 1st through July 15th, when all the wildfires occurred, that BUI should have been in that 75 range. It was in 300 range, which is, as you can see, that's record-setting right across the board. And this was true for just about every weather station in the central part of British Columbia. 2018, again, the fires more widespread, but kind of that area where we had the just kind of northwest of the 2017 fires, where we had a lot of fires concentrated. Again, it was the latter part of July into August that we've seen the extreme fire behavior. The numbers in those areas should have been, 70 to 80, and we're seeing well over 200. So that's kind of where we're starting to see those numbers. It's really interesting. We're reworking our system to develop these average graphs, and we're starting to be able to break these into different time frames. So this would be for the length of the fire record. So for the Grassy Plains Hub weather station, this would be for 35 years. If I go into the system now and recalculate this and tell me to give an average for the last 10 years, you'll find that it's well over 100. So, that's in terms of climate change, that's what's happening for us. So I would speak to the new kid on the block. So we've pretty well taken care of the pine and the pine beetle. We now have a spruce beetle that's affecting our spruce forest in kind of that central plateau as well. It has a two-year life cycle. The current infestation is around 1.2 million acres or about 500,000 hectares. So add that onto the 18.3, we're starting to get up there into the 19 million hectares of beetle infested areas. We're currently assessing determine the impact of wildfire occurrence and burn severity in these beetle areas. Again, a lot of the spruce areas are located what we call the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. A lot of them are on the west slope, so our weather patterns go west and east, so a lot of those areas are very much in areas that are more impacted by rainfall, so we're hoping that we're going to see less fire. Again, these areas, the fire regime usually sees large stand replacing events about every 200 years. Again, a lot of these areas are kind of in that 200-year framework right now, so they're definitely susceptible to larger fires, but our average fire size in these spruce areas is about 100 to 150 hectares in size. So we're hoping that they kind of hold true to that, and we can start to eradicate this beetle as well. It's kind of funny from the forest industry side. Again, they're trying to harvest as much of the spruce before the beetle attacks it. And quite a big size difference. If you think of a lodgepole pine, which a lot of the sawmills in British Columbia are set up to use as kind of utility poles, telephone poles, very tall, very little taper to them, and now we're bringing very large spruce trees in there. So it's pretty interesting to see how the forest industry is trying to handle this larger material after spending. In Prince George, I live about 5 or 6 kilometers from a sawmill, and that sawmill saws approximately 800,000 to 1 million board feet of lumber a day, and now they're having to deal with these large diameter spruce trees. So it's pretty funny to see them rolling into the sawmill. What will the future hold? We're definitely seeing increasing drought, and that will definitely lead to increased area burn. Everything that Aaron said, we're seeing. When you start to think in terms of average temperatures, and I'll speak, don't know how to do the transfer, but in the northern part of British Columbia, in the last 20 years, we've seen temperature increases of 2.5 degrees Celsius. Maybe Aaron can put that in the Fahrenheit for you, but that's extreme. We're seeing longer fire seasons. We're seeing less snowpack. When I drove from British Columbia to Alberta heading east, I have to drive through the mountain ranges, and there's an area typically east of Prince George that deals with a lot of snowfall, a lot of rainfall. The snow is measured there in meters, so 3.3 feet. That area usually gets 6 to 7 meters of snow a year. And when I drove through this year, I would say that they were probably less than 2 meters of snow, so a huge impact. And it seems like we're having a very mild winter as well. Although about 2 weeks ago in British Columbia, in Prince George, we set an all-time temperature low since 1986, 44.3, and Celsius or Fahrenheit. I can tell you that's damn cold. So we're seeing that, and again, Aaron spoke to this, the jet stream is definitely changing. We're seeing the jet stream kind of slow down, allowing it to be more accordion. We're seeing a lot more hot, dry temperatures further north. So, areas that we have fuels that are very susceptible to large fires are becoming warmer and drier. So we're starting to see larger fires in those areas. In terms of fuel, we've got the pine beetle, we've now got the spruce beetle. Industry can't harvest, and it's pretty well finished harvesting all the mountain pine beetle affected areas. They're still doing some of that, but we're still going to see that fuel loading continue to fall down and be an issue in terms of creating new stands and having a huge splash load underneath. So we see that as being a huge impact for us. The future. If you're in the fire game in Western Canada, and I would say anywhere in the world now, it's going to be a pretty good job to have, because I don't think we're going to see increase or decreasing fires. I think it's only increasing. We're seeing wildfires increase in terms of intensity, area burn, and duration. We're fighting fire in British Columbia. We used to fight wildfire from the 1st of May until early September. We're now fighting it from early March almost into early November now. So, and again, the southern part of British Columbia, we have some areas that are almost desert. So, they're seeing that much more. Fuel hazards will remain high to extreme, and all beetle attack stands, not only the mountain pine beetle, but the spruce beetle. The jury's still out what we'll see in that, but I don't think it will be as bad as mountain pine beetle, but time will tell. Our landscape and our wildland urban interface fuel management and fire smarts are increasing in importance. The good thing about having two back-to-back record fire seasons is government definitely loosened the purse strings and allowed us to start to do a little more fuel management around communities. So that's been very good from that perspective. And we're we're starting to see very much for a resource-based industry and province that values at risk are continuing to be threatened. Again, we have a huge gas and oil component to our resource-based industry as well, and they tend to be out in areas of large tracts of unburnt timber with huge amounts of values and assets out there. So that's only going to continue in the future. And again, public pressure to continue to protect that. That's it for me. Is there any questions?
Be loud so the computer can hear you. Somebody's got to have a question for Dana.
I think Amanda's going to have to
Help me in the questions.
No questions? I don't believe it.
Amanda, again, another bug observation, closely related to heart beetle, for the spruce beetle, mountain pine beetle, demonstrated recently up in Minnesota, that they have actually, their life cycle has changed, with their beetle population, and then it may be something that might play into things like the spruce beetle outbreak. They're having 2 years of state life cycle now, with a greater than 2 degrees C increase in temperature. So that's something that they're probably having to get.
Is that Dana? Were you able to hear the comment? Oh, now you're muted. Oh, now, okay, sorry. Now you're muted. Try to unmute again. Were you able to hear the comment about the spruce beetle?
Amanda, I can't hear the questions.
Okay. Sorry, we had a comment about the spruce beetle.
Beetles in Minnesota, they've actually seen more generations leave it.
Yeah, beetles in Minnesota have shorter generations now, so not so fun. There's more of a comment than a question, but I don't know if that's been observed with pine beetle or other predators over in British Columbia.
No, one point I didn't bring up is we had mountain pine beetle attack in the early 80s, kind of in that Caribou area, that Chilcoot Plateau where the 2017 wildfires were. Again, it's an area where very dry, not huge annual rainfalls, and we were seeing wildfires consuming areas from the 1980 beetle that still had fine branch material on it. So, that's where we're at, is we're not seeing, again, with decreasing rainfall, even 2019 being seemed to be a wetter year than normal. Right across the province, every station from our Environment Canada, our National Weather Service, returned below average amounts of precipitation. So huge concerns, from the perspective, we thought we got a lot of rainfall and a lot of precipitation, but we turned out to not get as much as an average year. So I think that expectation is there. In this picture, the dragon eggs are the best thing we could use.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?